have in front of me here a double chimney lashing kit that's available on tvtrade.ie. Now, with your standard lashing kit that you'd use for mounting a pole, something like this, you simply run a cable around, attach a bracket onto your pole, onto your chimney, lock it into position, and mount a single pole holding something like a UHF aerial up. Now, if you have a very long pole, we'll say, that's been mounted, it might possibly be better to use something like this double lashing kit here. And the idea is that we use the two brackets to give that extra support necessary to confidently anchor the base bracket onto the chimney, so we can be sure that when we put up our pole afterwards and put an aerial on top of it, that it won't rock excessively in the wind. Okay, so how did it work? Well, if we just look at the different parts that make it up, we have effectively two of everything. Okay, so what we have here is we have two brackets that are separate, mounted separately. Okay, and with each one of these, what we'll use is 2 J bolts, 1 U bolt, 3 of these corner pieces, and also 1 length of guy wire here wrapping around. So what we'll actually do here is, if we took the first bracket here, we would come along and we would attach it onto the chimney like this. Okay, so the first thing we would do is we'd attach something like this U-bolt here. We'd take the nuts off and bolt it into position. And then what we would do is we'd take a length of this guy wire and wrap it around the chimney and terminate it. Now, on each end of the guy wire, we'd use this J-bolt here. So, for instance, we'll grab the guy wire and wrap it repeatedly around this, and then wrap it back around the wire itself on one end, run the cable around, and repeat the same process on the far end. And on the far end of the J-bolt, we'll actually attach it to the bracket like this. We obviously take off the nut first, put the nut back on the far side, and we have it hand tight, we'll say initially, and then we tighten it in by simply using a 15mm socket to drive this in and take all the slackness out of the cable. Now, at the corners, we use these corner pieces. Okay, so what we do is we put the corner piece here, and you can see there's 2 little guides on this corner piece. So we'll run the guide wire through there, and the purpose of this guide is twofold. Number one, it is to stop the wire actually eating into the chimney. And number 2 is, so if it was just wired directly onto concrete, this would not be ideal. And then the second thing is to make sure that if we tighten this wire, that it doesn't loosen over a period of time. So obviously there'll be very little give in this metal here afterwards. So once we have it tightened, it should stay secure forevermore. Okay? So what we'll do then is, we'll have that process and we'll mount, we'll say, this bracket here. And on a much taller chimney, if you can imagine, we might make a decision that because of the overall length of the pole, we want to have the next bracket maybe a foot higher or maybe a full metre higher and wrap around. And what we'll do then is, we'll have the base of the pole, we'll just slot down through here, through the U-bolt, be bolted here again, and then we can have an extension above that, maybe up another 2 or 3 metres, and have our UHF area or whatever mounted on that. So these are not an overly common bracket in terms of what is sold on it, but it certainly has its demand. It used to be a lot more popular when there used to be a lot more, we'll say, large BBC aerials for picking up the BBCs from the north or from Wales, but increasingly that's all being done by satellite. Now, it may become a lot more popular now with the advent of both Sairview and Freeview, and people might want to combine the two. Now, in terms of what will we use this in conjunction with, in terms of the tools, well, the key things we'd need is, we'd need a sharp set of snips like this for cutting the guy wire to length. And after that then, we'd need a 15mm socket, which would be used both on these large U-bolts here and also on these J-bolts. And of course, something like this ratchet here as well to drive, to tighten it into position. So that's it anyway. An overview of the double chimney bracket available on tvtrade.ie.